Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White, the real dragon slayer, author and entrepreneur sales coach. Tune in weekly for human conversation about business and sales. Enjoy business expert interviews, educational episodes, and virtual cuppas with entrepreneur business owners. So grab yourself a cuppa and enjoy. Here is your host, Jules White.
So welcome everybody to the Human Conversation. And I have got a very, very great young man with me. This young man, we have been talking since, we just said to each other, since probably the back end of 2018, where we've been trying to get a date together where we could do this, and today has finally come. So I'm really happy to introduce to you Umesh Bhatt. Now I'm told I've said that okay. Was that okay, Umesh?
That was perfect.
Fabulous. He is the owner of a company called Pulse Pixel. Now, obviously, all the information is in the narrative underneath the podcast, so everybody can get your links and find out how to contact you. So not to worry about any of that. But this conversation, I think, is going to be great for me as much as him, because since we first spoke, huge amounts has changed. He's already told me that before we came on air. So I can't wait to find out what's been going on in his life. But here's what he also said to me. He's 22 years old, okay, so a very young, smart entrepreneur. He's a 2-time uni dropout. We definitely need to talk about that because I want to know all about that. And I just want to find out everything about you in this next half an hour and have a fabulous human conversation with you, Umesh. I kind of want to ask you, what was it that you wanted to do when you were young? What was it you wanted to do when you left school?
So that's a great question. And thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I know we've been planning this for a long, long time. So yeah, I mean, what did I want to do when I was at school or when I finished school? It wasn't, to be honest with you, it wasn't very clear what I wanted to do, but it was very clear what I did not want to do. You know, growing up in a traditional Indian family, as well as in a traditional education system in the UK, where you go to school, you get your good grades, you go to university, and then you get a job. It was very evident for me seeing, first of all, let me just give context. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. So seeing people around me, not just my brothers, but just people, finish school, finish university, get a job, be in tons of debt, or maybe get a job that they don't like. So it became very clear for me at a very young age that going to university, graduating, getting a job, a 9-to-5, having a boss wasn't really the route that I wanted to take. So to answer the question, it wasn't very clear what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something creative. I knew I wanted to do something video related, which is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but I had no idea specifically what it was. I just knew that I did not want to do the boring traditional route of going to university, getting a nice grade, getting a job, settling down, getting married. I wanted to do something, that fulfills the lifestyle that I want to live. And even though I'm not living the perfect lifestyle right now, I think one of the clear things when you first start entrepreneurship is, life is not a straight line. It's literally like the biggest wiggly line that you could create. So yeah, so to answer the question, it wasn't very clear, but it was clear what I did not want to do.
And do you know something, when I coach people in the work I do, we'll often talk around business and various things. And it's always interesting. And I say, who's your ideal client? They'll say, well, I know who my ideal client isn't. And it's funny how we kind of always know what we don't want, but we don't always find it easy to articulate what we do want. And in some ways that might be good, because it means that we're keeping options open. So that allows us to look at what's out there and then sort of almost let life guide us, down that path. But here's the thing. So you knew you didn't necessarily want to do the uni route, etc. And yet I hear you tell me 2-time uni dropout. So come on, spill the beans on that one.
Yes. Where do I even start? I mean, To kind of rewind back, let's go back to when I first finished school, which I was, how old are you? I think you're around 18 when you
Probably
finished.
18. I was
Yes,
16, but
yes.
that was a long time ago. But yeah, 18's about right now, isn't it? So
Yeah, so I finished my A levels. You know, I got decent average grades, I'd say. For me, it wasn't very clear, and because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I was left with very few options. You know, everybody around me was doing the route of getting good grades, then going to university. So for me, it was the obvious option. You know, there was that, and then there's a second reason of my my perception of what I thought university was back then was very different to what the reality of university was when I actually went. So before I went to uni, I had in my head that, oh, it's going to be a place where it's filled with opportunities. You're going to be learning about something that you're passionate about. It's going to be like amazing knowledge that you wouldn't get anywhere else. You know, I had a very naive view on it, to be honest, but I really did look at it from a high level perspective. So back then, I definitely didn't look at university like it was a bad thing. I looked at it as, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. What happened was I went to actually the University of Brighton. I know you did a TEDx talk there.
that's exactly where I went. Yeah, it's
Yes,
fabulous.
yes. So I went to the University of Brighton, which is about a 3 hour journey from 3-4 hours from Birmingham. And I was there for about a month. I remember a week or so into university, you know, it's so different, first of all, to school, because you're kind of you're away from your family, you're in your own world, you're independent, you've got to learn all these different things, but also you're meeting people from different areas that you've grown up. And I remember going to lectures at that time and thinking, wow, this is really not what I thought it was going to be. To add to that, you know, you're paying 9K, 9 grand pounds in university tuition. You're paying for accommodation as well, which is a lot of money. You're paying for books, which are a lot of money. And so every time I started to go to these lectures and classes, each time I could feel like a voice in my head telling me what is actually happening. Like, what am I doing here? You know, every time I went there, I was thinking, okay, like, what did I really learn? And is what I'm learning actually useful for what I'm going to be doing in the future? Is it real life skills? And the more I was there, the more I started to realize that, okay, this is really not what I thought it was, and it's time to start considering other options. So,
What was the degree that you took?
oh yeah, it was a business management degree.
Okay.
So I went into business because that was like the only thing that I had interest in.
Yeah.
And again, going back to like every time I was there, I was thinking, okay, I started to also realize at that point that the degree that I was studying, you can't really teach it. Like, you can't really bring out a textbook and teach a 18-year-old entrepreneurship. Like, how do you even teach that? It's such a crazy subjective thing to learn. So long story short, I started to realize it wasn't for me. So at that moment, I started to consider other options. This is about 6 weeks into my degree, because I knew I didn't want to be at that university. I knew I didn't want to be in the education system. And I did know that I wanted to start a business, but I had no idea what in. So this was around, I think it was mid-October or maybe November. I dropped out, made the decision. I remember the awkward conversation I had to have with my mom and dad about it, but it went pretty well, to be fair.
Good. I'm pleased they supported you. That's very good. That's good.
Yeah, I think we always amplify these like conversations in our head, but I dropped out at that point, and to be honest with you, that whole year was wasted, because everything that I thought I would do in that year, I remember looking at the time when I did that, I was looking at so many success stories of people that dropped out, and I had this naive view in my head that me dropping out would automatically lead to me being successful. When in reality, when I did drop out, nothing happened. Like, I ended up being on job seekers allowance for the entire remainder of the year. I think I was earning £57 per week. I had to go to the center every Monday to sign on. I had to go to these workshops. I remember going to these workshops and thinking, like, what am I actually doing here? So it was a very boring period of my life, to be honest with you. And then the summer came, and then really the same thing kind of happened. I was thinking, okay, nothing's happened for me for the past 6 to 9 months. So the only choices that I've gotten left is to go back to university, because clearly what I'm doing right now is not working. I tried so hard in getting jobs and that just failed. I tried to start a business, but that just failed. So at that point I said, okay, let's just go back to university. And I ended up going to Coventry University to study the same degree. And that one I went to for an entire year. I did a whole year at Coventry University. I got the first side, which was, I'd say, semester 1, where I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people that I've met. I met some amazing people. I enjoyed the university itself. But then when it came to semester 2, those voices started to creep up in my head again. Those voices of, what am I actually learning? Like, what am I doing here? You know, I've got like a 10,000 word coursework or essay to write, and I'm just thinking, like, what is the actual point of this? There's literally zero value or skill that I'm going to be getting out if I was to put all my effort into it. And I'm someone where if I don't see the point in doing something, I just won't do it. If I don't see an actual outcome by putting in the effort, then there's no point in me doing it. And so those feelings started to come back. And as a result, it meant that if I was to go to parties or if I was to like go out with friends, I'd literally feel guilty that I'm having fun, because in reality, I'm just putting on a mask to mask me fulfilling like my actual purpose or my actual, you know, what I really want to do. So I finished that year in university, and it was in the summer holidays that I ended up starting my my company and actually going into business. And it was from there I ended up dropping out, and basically here I am today. I think this is about 3 years later now.
That's amazing. And I think, isn't it interesting, you know, the things that you say, I'm sort of listening intently, as I always do, the things you say about, you know, that was a waste of time and that was wasted. And you know something, it probably wasn't, because if nothing else, it was probably just not the right time for you to do your business at that point back then. So better to be doing something rather than absolutely nothing. And you were doing something, even though it wasn't fulfilling. You were still actually probably learning more than you realise. It's also great, I think, that you recognise that that wasn't fulfilling you, because there are so many people, I think, go through life unfulfilled, but they don't make the changes and the choices.
Yes.
So for one so young as you young thing, I think it's wonderful that you saw that and recognised it. So you started your business in the summer.
Yeah.
And that business was what? Was that this Pulse Pixel, or was it something else?
It wasn't named Pulse Pixel back then, but it was this. To give a bit of context, so during the summer holiday, my plan was to get a summer job, you know, something like, I don't know, being a sales assistant or something. I spent 4 to 5 weeks, I think it was, sending applications, job applications, handing out my CV literally every day. I used to go to my local city center. I used to print out, I think it was 50 to 100 CVs, and literally one by one pass the CV around to a different shop. Then I'll go online and then I'll apply for another 20, 30 jobs. I did this every single day and no results. I got a few interviews here and there, but for some reason it just wasn't happening. At this point, I think it was a minus £1,000 in my bank account, which is quite crazy, but at the same time, it's not that crazy for a student. So to be fair, I was kind of living luxury compared to most of my friends that I know. But then I just ended up finding a mentor and coming across this online mastermind group where they teach you specific skills that you need to learn to start a business. And that was the one thing that I felt like I was missing previously in trying to start a business, because there's so much information out there, there's so much content out there online, but none of them tell you specifically how to, you know, get a client, or how to do sales, or how to, you know, do objection handling, or all these small different skills. So at this moment, I ended up starting my company. I think I got my first client about 2-3 weeks into my business. There's $150 from Dubai. My bank account went from like minus 1,000 to about minus £900. But then 2 days later, I remember it was 1 a.m. and I was in the kitchen with my pajamas on, and I was speaking to this guy from LA, and he looked exactly like Gordon Ramsay. He was like the American version of Gordon Ramsay, minus the swear words. And he ended up paying me $2,000. And I remember at this moment thinking, what the hell is going on? Like, someone just literally PayPal'd me $2,000 for me to deliver a specific service for him. Yeah. And that was what took me, first of all, out of that overdraft that I was in. And that was the moment I realized, wow, like, this business thing, whatever it is, there's so much more to it. It's a lot easier than I thought. And if I can repeat this action and this process that I've been following, then who knows where this can go. And at that moment, I literally sent a email to my university at the time and said, yo, I'm out. I withdraw.
I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I'm not coming back. And it came at a perfect time, because that was my summer holidays at the time. So it gave me enough of a window to prepare to not go back for year 2. And so, yeah, that was summer 2016.
So tell me what you did for that client. What was it that you were doing? Describe your business at that point.
Yeah, so the company that I started was, I was always into videos. So I started an animation company where we help other businesses basically better explain what they do in like a short 60 to 90 second video. So you've probably seen those animated videos online, on websites, app videos. So for that specific client, they had a new website that they designed, and they wanted I think it was a 60-second video that basically summarized exactly what their company does, so that they could win more clients through their website. And so, yeah, that's what I did for that client. Although at the time, I remember thinking, what the hell? What do I even do now? I've got this $2,000. Like, how do I even deliver the service? And so,
but you clearly did. But you clearly did deliver that service. And so, was this drawing yourself, or is this using technology that you do the animation?
So what happened was, back then it was only me and a couple of people. Me, a few animators, some storyboard artists. And so what I'd do is I'd take on all these clients, and then me and my team would draft up a plan as to how we can convey the message that they're trying to convey in a perfect story or a perfect video. And so we use tools like Adobe Premiere Pro, After Effects, and since then, like, the business has grown quite a lot. Now we're a team of 8.
Fabulous.
We've got clients from Australia, America, London, Japan, even China. So yeah, there's a team of 8 of us now, and it's grown quite a lot since I first started. And the company's officially been around since 2017 March.
So this is you're a 22-year-old, very bright young man, and you're running a business with 8 employees.
Yes.
That's awesome. Is that not amazing?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when someone says it out loud, because you don't view it like that in your own head. So
no, you don't. And you know what? This is what I discovered when I speak now and I relay my story, and I listen back to it and I think, oh my goodness, did I do that? And it's almost like you don't realize the reality of what you've done and how far you've come. So first of all, that's amazing. Now, the second thing I want to do is I want to talk about the fact that you've had a lot of changes since we last talked. I now want to know what those changes are.
So we spoke, I think let's say it was end of 2018. Really, it's just to give you the best answer. The whole journey of entrepreneurship it's kind of like a journey. I know it sounds cliche, but it's literally like a journey of finding yourself, because when you first start a company, and I've seen your story, which is amazing. It really is a journey of like self-discovery, because 2 things happen when you start a company. Number 1, your strengths are tested, but number 2, your weaknesses are exposed. And that cannot be truer than anything else. Like, I remember when I had my first client, and I had my first ever sales call on Skype. I was stuttering. I was so nervous. I was sweating loads. And so all these skills are tested. So to kind of answer your question, since we last spoke, a lot's happened. A lot from, I was in a partnership previously, which failed, a business partnership which failed. But I don't view it as something that was bad. To be honest, I don't regret it, because I thought it was amazing. It didn't work out. But an incredible amount was learned through that. And I think one of the great things about it is that it makes your visions and it makes your goals a lot more clearer, because now you've got more clarity on what you actually want to do.
I love that, gosh, I'm in awe of the fact and I keep going on about it, I know, but you have to bear with me. I was 50 a couple of weeks ago. So to be
Nah,
talking
you're
to
not
it,
50.
oh, I am. Go on, shocks, yeah, carry on. But the point is that somebody at 22 years old, when I think about myself at 22, I hadn't even started my journey of discovery about who I was, so you've got a real head start on where I was. And talking about things like getting clarity on what you really want and your goals, it's music to my ears, in all honesty, because I think my generation, we weren't really surrounded by entrepreneurship like you guys are. And I think it's so lovely to see you making this much progress so young, because then you've got so much more ahead of you and you've got this big head start, as I say. I think one of the big things for me you touched on earlier, was how we don't really teach about entrepreneurship as much as we could. And the mastermind, and how the mastermind just brought everything together for you. The things you really needed to know they were brought together in that one place, which I think is so essential, isn't it? Because you can get overwhelmed by all the information out there.
Man. Yes.
But when you get a mentor or a group or a mastermind, suddenly you can start really nailing the things you really need to be doing. So for you to have clarity at this point is really something. You'll get even more clarity. There's even more to come for you, which is the exciting thing, because there'll be new things come, and then you'll need to find clarity on those. But that's the most amazing part of the entrepreneur journey. So you've now got 8 people. I presume now you're heading it up alone, because the partnership didn't work out, or did you find another partner?
No. I'm back to being alone. Like the partnership was always a tester to see how it would go. So we're both friends, so it wasn't something that was like a massive, had massive repercussions. It was always a test. So it's back to being solo, and I'm loving it, to be honest.
Amazing, isn't it? So what's the next couple of years look like for you then? What's the aspirations? Where's the clarity for those goals? Tell us what you're going to be doing.
You know what? I have no idea. And I like that. I have no idea, because if I give you an answer now, I know for a fact, based on history, that my answer will change next week. So right now I might say, in a couple of years' time, I'm going to be running a 7-figure company. But I know for a fact in something might pop up next week, and my answer will change. So it's the unknown that I enjoy. And that's the part that they don't teach you in school, because in school, you're taught that you need to have everything clear. You're taught that you need to know exactly where you want to be, because everything's a linear line. Whereas for me, I like the fact that in a year's time, I could be in a completely different business. So I'm just really just going with it and seeing where the journey takes me, to be honest with you.
It's very liberating, isn't it, to approach your business in that way? There will be business coaches who would go mental at this conversation, because they would say, no, you need to have a business plan. You need to know where you want to go. And, there are elements to a business plan, and making very clear goals that are beneficial. There's a fact to that. But if you're that free-spirited and you're that happy to just kind of go with it, then I say, why not?
I think we need to stop projecting our views onto other people. So one of the things that I've been learning in the past, I think 11 months now, is personality types. So to be specific, Carl Jung's depth psychology, where he talks about how humans are, you got different types of humans. You got thinkers, you got feelers, and you got people that make decisions based on different things. Things that I learned through learning about this was that how you and I do things is literally very different. So you've got different people who make decisions very differently. They think very differently. So when it comes to like business coaches, I've had so many different business coaches. I know so many different business coaches. And I think the best ones are the ones that don't have the mindset of be like me, but they have the mindset of where are you in your journey, and what would be the best decision based on where you're at, because everybody's journey is literally subjective.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, that's one of the reasons why we as entrepreneurs do not work for people, because otherwise we would be on that journey of how they want it to be and how they want us to behave and what they want for their business. I spent a couple of years before I started this business, I guess it was freelancing in a way. I was in interim contracts where I'd been asked to go in and set up a sales department, set up the sales strategy for businesses. Quite exciting work for me. I like that stuff. However, the minute I got there, we've always done it like this. Actually, we've always done it this way. And immediately I knew I couldn't make a difference, okay? Because I was going to be restricted to not get them actually to step outside their comfort zone and their boxes and just be true them. Because for me, business is about, sales is about people by people. You know that because you've obviously followed some of my stuff. But more intensely than that we are all absolutely different and unique. Every one of us. There's no one person the same as the other, as you've just said. So therefore, how could you train a company to sell in one specific way?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
One of the things I learned, because sales has been something, I'd say the most valuable skill I've learned in life is sales. It just is, because sales isn't about selling. It's about, it's just communication, When I started to get better at sales, the way I spoke to my friends was very different, People were telling me how I became a better listener, or how my speaking skills improved, from being a shy introvert back then. So for about, I think it was maybe 8 months, I did sales training. So I was teaching entrepreneurs from all over the world, sales. Every time they had a question, I'd answer it. And one thing I found was that everybody has their own version of doing sales. So the example I'd give is, let's say we've got someone like Grant Cardone, who's a very, he's a stereotypical American salesman, and he's very loud and all over the place.
Yeah.
But then there's a guy in the office I'm at, the co-working space I'm at, very introverted, very quiet. He's a salesman for a large agency, and his method of sales is so different. So everybody has their own version of doing sales, and it must have been a very big challenge for you when you went into that company and you had people that already had their own traditions of doing things, and here you are trying to, essentially rewrite the way they do things, and it's so difficult to do, but it's a fascinating skill.
It is, and I think, for me, my book is all about this. It's all about the fact that life skills are sales skills. It's all about the fact, that's a huge one for me. And it's almost, I've said this to you probably before, or you've heard me say it, I want to untrain everyone who's ever been trained to sell. That's kind of, that's how I feel about it. Because I think we have to sell as us. We have to. And yes, there's an element of understanding who the customer is and what their preferences is. And that's by questioning, and that's by listening, all the things you've mentioned. We don't have to put them in boxes. We don't have to say you're blue, yellow, green, and red. So that's how I'm going to sell to you. We need to just understand they may have a different world to us. And so step inside their world. This is as simple as it is for me, but with this freeness around it, so that you're not structured to the words you say and the route you go and the process and the steps of the sale.
Well, I used to have that. I used to have, every time I had a sales call with someone, I would open my Google document, which had bullet points of how to qualify or questions I need to ask. And I used to literally read things word for word. But I'd say the evolution of how I do sales now is so different, because now, even when I get on a call with someone, my main goal, I feel like, is I want them to know who I am as a person, because I know that if they know who I am as a person, then investing $3,000 or $5,000 becomes no problem, because the main thing that they're looking for is trust. And that's why they're interviewing 20 other agencies that do the same thing as me, that even have way more experience than me. But if I can show them who I really am, then they will know for a fact that I'm someone that's going to over deliver. And I even I try and show my personality so much in sales meetings, or even small things. I'll send them like, for example, when I send them a proposal, I'll put GIFs or memes in the proposal and I'll make it humorous, or I'll just say funny things that you wouldn't really see in other things, just so that I can showcase who I am.
I think you need to trust who you are, because I think what sales does to us is it brings it into this conscious place as opposed to the subconscious us, which is actually the real us. It brings us into this place where we suddenly put ourselves under pressure. Oh my goodness, I've got to do this. I've got to say that. I must get this. I've got to make sure I do it in this time. And that is how I was taught to sell for years, in that way. And of course, there's huge pressure then. You know, you should be closing them at this point. You should be making sure you don't ever go back. Yes. If they say they don't want it, they don't mean that. You know, and it was all, and I was like, no.
That's my first year in sales. Summed up.
No more. So my whole methodology had to be about people, and about people by people, but about being true you, building trust. At the end of the day, not everyone's going to buy from you. You know, this is the fact. So stop trying to push people to buy from you who don't really want to. Just let them go. It's fine. Wave, smile, send them love. But you need to connect with people who are like-minded, who get you, who have the same values, and who trust you. If you get all those bits right, you'll make sales, and you don't even have to make an effort to do that, because you're already who you are.
People buy from people. It's just that simple. People buy from people.
Absolutely right. But I love chatting to you. I knew I would. I think you're very inspirational, and I think anyone who's listening must realize that at 22 years old, you've got a whole fountain of knowledge. You know, as I say about my 14-year-old son, he's lived before. You know, I feel you're a little bit like that, where he's got this wisdom, you know. I think it's about staying grounded. It's about following your dreams and being who you want to be, you know, and you just got to trust that journey. It's really exciting. So if you wanted to tell us one last thing about you or about your business, just as a lasting sort of thought for us from this podcast, what would it be?
So a lasting thought. First of all, thank you for the kind words. That was amazing. That was really amazing.
It's true. I don't say it to everybody, you know. Not everyone.
Oh, so I'm the special one. I'm the special guest on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, actually, all my guests are special. I can't do that one because I'd never have any guests on it, would I?
In terms of lasting words, if you do want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. One of the things that I'm trying to do to kind of to elaborate on the whole selling thing is build my personal brand, because I think the value of showcasing your real self, your authentic personality, it just helps with generating more business, but also generating the right type of business, because it all goes back to showing people who I really am. Because if they see who I am, then they're going to want to talk to me, or potentially even be interested in my services. I'm just someone who's on a journey, and if you want to follow that journey, you can check me out on LinkedIn. If you want to see the kind of work that we do, go to our website, which I'm sure you'll leave in the description. But
I will, but tell us what it is.
Yeah, www.pulsepixel.com.
I think obviously I'll put all the links in. I think you're right about personal brand. You know, I've been doing a lot of work around this in my own mastermind. So where I'm actually part of a mastermind myself. So I still carry on my self-development, even though I'm old, because it's really important that I keep up with everything and I get the outside view in, you know, because otherwise you're so in your business, aren't you, sometimes? And funnily enough, last week our subject matter was all about personal brand. And you know how much it's changed, and how much now it's about what I can do for you. So it's not about me. My personal brand is actually more about you as my customer and what I can do for you, you know, which is a really lovely way to start sort of positioning it.
It's interesting, personal brand, because I've been posting on LinkedIn for the past year or so. And I remember I used to post every day at one point, and I'd post like, you know, statistics and just post about my service, and they used to get zero engagement. Like nobody cared about the average attention span being 8 seconds. Like nobody cares about that stuff. But then when I started posting about myself personally, for example, my most viral post, I think it got around 40,000 views or something crazy.
Wow.
And that was a post about me and how I started my company and how I dropped out of university and how I was getting paid £57 a week. And like from that post, I was literally getting 10 people daily messaging me saying, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And so when you look at it, I look at personal branding as storytelling and again, just showing them the authentic self rather than selling.
But you're right about storytelling, because that's how we do connect. It's how we've connected since we were young, most of us. We were read stories as children, so there's a huge emotional connection to stories. And whilst it's definitely about who you are, where you've come from, what your core values are and what you believe, it's also about them and what their core values are and what they believe, and you understanding that. And then when those two come together, well, that's when the real magic happens in my mind. That's how I see it. So personal brand is definitely all about you, but all about you for your customer. It's that next bit, 100%. Isn't it? So so definitely keep along that personal branding line of things, because I think it's the only way to go. Also, one of the things we found out, and I'm not a stats person normally, but people when they come to buy are probably about 57% plus already along the buying decision before they've even started to talk to you, because they've got so much knowledge at their fingertips with the internet. It's true.
It's true. Like me having a few YouTube videos online, or me having LinkedIn posts, when I get on a call with a prospect now, it's like they already know kind of who I am. It's a bit weird in a way, but at the same time, it's amazing because I don't need to spend half an hour trying to like sell myself.
Exactly.
I can just have a normal conversation. I think that's the weirdest thing I learned in business, that it's not as corporate as we make it out to be.
No.
LinkedIn is really not that corporate. If anything, it's just people. Yeah. And I think that's super interesting.
And that's why I called my podcast The Human Conversation, because that's what I truly believe sales is about. It's like going to have a cup of coffee with a friend.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, listen, I have loved chatting to you. It's been really inspiring, actually. You're a really inspiring young man. And I hope that we carry on connecting so that I can see where this journey goes for you.
Sure,
I'm excited to follow you. And obviously, our listeners, well, I hope all of our listeners have been inspired by this one. This is a podcast where I've got a young man who is really inspiring, and that's a really great thing to see. My son, as I say, is 14. He's a bit younger than you, but he's just got all this lovely wisdom. He did a podcast with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll have to look it up. I'll send you the link. And that was all about what school meant to him, which was really fascinating, just to see what he thought of school. He had some wonderful ideas around that. I think you'd have probably liked it. But so thank you for your inspiration. Keep doing what you're doing. You're pretty awesome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure. And everyone who wants to connect with you, your details will be below in the narrative. I'll get all your links from you. We are on SoundCloud. We're on iTunes. We are on Spotify now with The Human Conversation. And we have hit over 30 episodes now. And I'm so, yay! I'm so happy because, I absolutely love making these. I never know what I'm going to get. It's a bit like a box of chocolates, isn't it? As Forrest Gump used to say. And we will see you next time for The Human Conversation. Ta-da for now.
You've just been listening to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White. To find out more about the other work that Jules does, please visit her website www.liveitloveitsellit.co.uk. And if you enjoyed the podcast, then please do leave a rating and review on the platform you use to enjoy her show. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.